Hello and welcome to the Blue Tongue Stadium for this evening's game between the Central Coast and Sydney FC. The news from Gosford on the Central Coast of New South Wales is unfortunately not good. Very heavy localised showers over the last 24 hours, which have certainly continued through the morning and into this afternoon, have rendered the pitch unplayable, leaving referee Matthew Breeze with no alternative but to postpone the fixture. The date for that postponement has yet to be decided upon by Football Federation Australia. Matthew Breeze, the match official for today, tried as hard as he could to get this game to go as per schedule, but after 3 or 4 inspections and mooting the possibility of delaying the kick-off, in his ultimate wisdom, as you can see with the pictures under his thonged feet, that he really was left with only one option, and that was to cancel the evening's activity and for Football Federation Australia to postpone, to reschedule this match between the table-topping Central Coast and Sydney FC. It's a huge disappointment. There was a big turnout expected by the Central Coast officials. They were hoping for their biggest crowd of the season. I guess the good news on the back of the postponement is we've got another game to look forward to later down the track. But for all the news from the sideline, let's go to Mike Cockrell now.
Thanks very much, Andy. You're right. Very disappointing news. The first ever postponement in the Hyundai A-League, but it really had to happen. I think the right decision was made by Matthew Breeze. I believe it was his first time in 21 years of refereeing that Matthew Breeze has had to postpone a match of football, but the pitch really was unplayable. We've had, I believe, around 120 mils of rain in the area over the last 6 hours or so. It never really gave the ground staff a chance to clear that surface water. They tried their best. They had brooms, they had the super sopper involved, they had squeegees out there, but every time they tried to clear the surface water, more rain came tumbling down. So in the end, Matthew Breeze, who I think had 2 or 3 pitch inspections, really left with no choice but to call off the game until a later date. Well, joining me is the Mariners Executive Chairman, Lyle Gorman. And Lyle, obviously a very disappointing day for the club.
Very frustrating indeed, Mike. Disappointing for the spectators here, the members here, the Sydney supporters who have travelled and travel well in voices you can hear behind us, and of course the viewing audience at home. It's a major disappointment. First in A-League history, hopefully the last.
You're obviously very sympathetic though with Matthew Breeze's decision.
Look, yeah, we had a long chat with Matthew. Obviously, we've been monitoring conditions for quite a while now. The ground hasn't improved in 2 hours. Both Sydney FC, ourselves and Matthew were aligned in our view that it was unsafe. There's a lot of reasons why we needed to make that decision, obviously, but certainly very supportive of Matthew's decision.
And what about some news on what everyone wants to know, when this game can possibly proceed?
Well, Mike, it's hard to know until we can have more chats about ground availability and some, but we'd be expecting a game maybe that free weekend in December. The Friday the 21st possibly stands out if that aligns itself with Fox. Obviously the frustrations tonight hopefully won't be there then. Clearly, as we said before, player welfare paramount tonight, the presentation of the A-League brand paramount tonight, spectators and member comfort paramount tonight. And as you know, we can't even get a sideline here, so the rules of the game are jeopardised tonight, so we can't play. We'll find the first available date we can, but it would make a lot of sense about that weekend, the free weekend leading into Christmas.
Well, you mentioned the sideline, and obviously player welfare was one issue, but you were involved in the discussions with Matthew Breeze earlier today, and one of the big reasons this game was postponed, of course, I think the ground staff, had 2 or 3 goes at marking this line we can see at the moment.
They certainly did. We've been trying here since 2 o'clock today to try and get the ground to actually take a sideline, and it hasn't been able to do that. We thought at 5 o'clock we had a rough chance, Mike, but then there was the bucketing down a bit after 5 that really ruined everything. People have said, why didn't we call it off earlier? Our obligation is to put the game on if we can, for both our broadcasting partner and ourselves. But after that last heavy downpour at 5 o'clock, it's been impossible. And if you look up that sideline, you'll see 3 sidelines. So I don't know how the rules of the game would ever survive under those conditions.
11,000 tickets, I think, were pre-sold yesterday. You were looking at your biggest home crowd of the season. I guess on a commercial level, also a bit disappointing.
Oh, it's extremely disappointing commercially. Obviously, hopefully, well, not hopefully, we can guarantee those people who are paid today will be able to come back to the game whenever it is rescheduled. But we were hoping for a crowd of 14,000, 15,000 tonight. It is very disappointing from a commercial point of view, but again, we've got to stand above that, and the game's got to be paramount to everyone.
And the fans that did turn up have taken the decision in the right way. They've obviously, a few of the Sydney fans have stayed behind their team warming up behind that far goal, but generally everyone took the decision pretty well, didn't they?
They've done exceptionally well. I think they've probably got a little bit of peace in mind that they will be able to come back when the game is rescheduled. Full credit to the Sydney crowd. They're wonderful supporters. The game needs that, and they're over there supporting their team at the moment, who are doing a light warm-up. So it's great they've travelled, and we really welcome them back here, and hopefully maybe Friday, December the 21st.
And just finally, Lyle, a very important message to the fans who have bought tickets for this game.
Yes, please hang on to those. We want them to know, Mike, that those tickets will readmit that day. Whether they've come to the ground today or not, or sitting at home and taken the punt that it would be called off, either way, those tickets will allow admission on whenever the game is rescheduled.
Thanks for your time, Lyle.
Absolute pleasure.
So that's the story, Andy, from pitchside. That's the latest news on this postponement of the match between the Central Coast Mariners and Sydney FC. I can tell you a few of the defenders involved with both teams very keen for the game to proceed. In the end, of course, it hasn't. That's because the referee, I think, has made the right decision.
I can hear the empathy in your voice for the Central defenders, Mike Cockrell. Before I let you go, however, some of the footballing issues that still remain unanswered. Player suspensions for tonight. What happens with Sash Petrovski, John Hutchison, the two that come to mind, for the reschedule? Will they sit out next week, or will they just be suspended for this rescheduled fixture?
No, the news is those bans will apply to next weekend's round when, of course, the Central Coast Mariners next Sunday go up to Brisbane to play the Queensland Roar. So both Petrovski and Hutchinson will now be missing for that game, which I guess throws Laurie McKenna's plans into some confusion. The flip side is that maybe Nigel Bugard and Tommy Pontiac, who were going to miss this game for injury, they may be back and available for that match.
And I guess for Sydney FC's viewpoint, that includes Juninho. He was looking to miss tonight through injury, so he might be available for the next game as well. Mike Cockrell, thanks for your time.
My pleasure.